Hello everybody and welcome to Adobe Live. We would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we are creating and streaming from today, and we would also like to pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. My name is Flynn, I am hosting today and I'm here with my good friend and fantastic illustrator Jeremy Lord. Hi Jeremy, how are you?
Hey, good man, how are you?
I like the salute. I haven't been saluted in a while, that feels great.
Get the respect you deserve.
Yeah, it's great. Yes, it's going to be the benchmark now for all streams. Some sort of acknowledgement of my station. Hello chat. Yes, we are live. So if you are there, come and say hi, and you can ask questions as we're going along. We're going to be jumping into a very exciting topic we've tackled a few times with Jeremy. So it's going to be a different take on this, and it's really fun. It's always really exciting to tackle pixel art here on Adobe Live. So don't hesitate to throw your questions in. There's a lot about setting up. So if you are not familiar with creating pixel art, maybe you've never done it before but you're interested, then this is the stream for you, because we're going to tackle all of that stuff. And as I said, if you've got questions as we are going along, don't hesitate to throw them in chat and we'll do our best to answer them as we go along. Jeremy, quick, I know we've got a lot to cover today, so quick, kind of what's your elevator pitch of who you are and what you do these days?
I wasn't expecting this. Elevator pitch. Oh man, I hate these things. I'm an illustrator, freelance illustrator, heavily kind of like manga, anime, Japanese influenced, but also I'm a bit of a gamer, so the pixel art kind of 8-bit retro 80s kind of vibe. It's a whole like maelstrom of references and inspirations going on. Yeah. But yeah, the pixel art is something that I'm a huge fan of doing, and something that works super well. So all of the things that we're going to kind of do today, as you can see, we're doing a little kind of like Japanese sushi shop.
I'll bring that up. Yeah,
definitely something that we can kind of, that I would do in kind of like a quote unquote normal style, like clean line style. But the isometric thing is really relevant to kind of like retro video games like SimCity or StarCraft, or any of these kind of like, you know, isometric games like 3/4 top down. And it's something that's super fun to do, and uses a completely different side of Photoshop to what I would normally do, and also uses a completely different process. So yeah, as you said, it's always super fun to get into, but that's probably a very long elevator pitch.
That's cool. I like it. We also segue into what we're doing today. So that's totally cool. It was just embedded in there. So this is really cool. So isometric pixel art. It's interesting take. Like, is this, what is this? Does this have a particular name, or is it isometric pixel art? Is that where we're at?
I think so, yeah. Well, it's like isometric illustration can be anything, right? It doesn't have to be pixel art. Like, that's where it originated in games like SimCity, this idea. And we'll talk a little bit about perspective and isometric and what it means in a sec. But originally, the OG stuff would have been pixel art. Nowadays, you get it, like you can do it in Illustrator, you can do it in 3D. There's a whole lot of stuff that uses that kind of isometric thing. So those two aren't necessarily like embedded in each other, but yeah, it's isometric pixel art, and it's kind of the way you construct it as well is something to look at. So let's jump straight into this actually. And like, as you said, there's a lot of kind of setting up to do. There's a lot of like pre-thinking that you need to do before you get into your pixel art. And one of the main ones is this idea of like pixel density of your work. So if you're looking at something like this, you can see that there's this kind of like the same, ideally kind of like little poison bottle, but the pixel density changes, and what that means is like on the 128 side, you can get a hell of a lot of detail. And on the 16 side, you're getting really like, you're not able to save very much, because you're really limited in terms of like how many pixels you can place in there. But there's definitely a middle ground, right? So you want something that's going to allow you to get some level of detail, but then if you go too far, like if you go to like 256, for instance, and it's always multiples of 8 or 4 or 2, I guess, yeah, 2. You're then kind of maybe navigating into pixelated art rather than pixel art. So there is a fine line there where it's like technically all art is pixel art because it's all created with pixels, but you just don't really see them anymore. And that's the whole point of pixel art. So the sweet spot for me is always this kind of like 64 or 32. 128 is cool, but it starts to really gonna get into maybe a little bit more pixelated art. If you push that to 256, then it's definitely like you don't see the pixels anymore. It's line work.
So it just can kind of look like bad line work or something.
Yeah, a little bit kind of janky, a little bit kind of defeats the purpose of the limitation of the pixel art is what makes pixel art. It's like figuring out how you can draw an eye with 4 square pixels. Like that's what's kind of like challenging, but also what defines the style itself. If you're going to bypass that, then it's no longer pixel art. So that's probably step 1, trying to choose your pixel density. And let's kind of go ahead and do that right now. So we're probably not going to be able to use this sketch as is. We're not going to be able to put this underneath our drawing and kind of do the pixel art on top of it. And you'll see why in a sec. So I'm going to make a new file. This file size will probably change as I'm doing the illustration, as I need more space or anything like that. So don't feel too locked in here to the actual pixel size because you can always add to it as you go. But we're going to start with probably we're going to need something bigger than 200 pixels. We're probably going to need, let's say in width, we're going to go with, let's go with something nice and even. We're going to go with 300 and 600. And again, we can fix this later on. Make sure we're in pixels as well. So in here, when we're kind of looking at our options that we can kind of do. Hello, please work. No, you don't like me today. That's interesting. Normally there's a little drop down here that gives me millimeters and every other kind of unit that I can choose. I guess it's not working today.
Is it not dropping down to change it from pixels to something else?
Oh, maybe I need to be in print. Oh, hang on, my mouse is frozen. What's going on here? Everything's gone bananas. There we go. Here we go. Pixels. We're gonna have to do this again. What did I say? 300 by 600. The joys of live. RGB, I always work in RGB, better colors, higher kind of color reproduction, good for neons, which I love. So let's hit create. And there we go. That's probably going to be too narrow. So I can fix that right now. I'm going to go Control Option or Command Option I. It's going to bring up this image panel. If you're not super keen on shortcuts, you can just go to Image and go to image size up here as well. Find that same panel. So image size, and it will bring the same thing up. And make sure you're in pixels. And we're gonna go and make this a little bit bigger, a little bit wider maybe. Let's go 600 by 900. That's a bit better. Okay.
And you always do it at 300 DPI?
Yeah, I would always do it at 300 DPI. Simply because it's just going to be like, we're probably going to use this for print later on. It doesn't really matter, to be honest, what we kind of do here, because we're going to get something that's going to work with pixels anyway. So if I fill this with a gray, you can see if I zoom in a hell of a lot, we can start to see the pixel grid. So it doesn't matter too much. I could potentially just switch it for the sake of this to 72. But again, not going to make a huge difference. We're probably just going to get like less pixel density happening. Like I'll have to zoom in less to start seeing the pixels. So yeah. So actually I kind of prefer that. So let's leave it at 72. Switch it back to white. And let's bring in my sketch here straight off the bat. So I'm still set up in Photoshop to do my kind of like classic non-pixel art drawing. So we're going to bring this in. You'll see that it's absolutely enormous. It's way bigger than my file that I created now. So that's fine. I can rescale this. So Command T, hold down Shift and Option at the same time, just goes from the center. And we're going to bring this down. Oops, not that much. That's too much.
Do you have anything open on your computer that might be like a massive file or something? Because your screen's going black a couple of times when you're doing things.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No,
it doesn't look like it.
Let me just
Photoshop.
quit this. Microsoft always wanting to do updates.
Is it trying to do an auto update while we're doing the stream?
No, but it's asking me to do the thing. I don't know if that's any better. So cool. So we've got something now, like before I press return, you can see that the sketch is kind of there. Like I've lost a hell of a lot of detail, but most of it's probably there. I could maybe use it as a base. If I hit return, you'll see that I'll start doing things. It's like, that's not terrible. So we could potentially use this as is, but it has kind of blurred it out, but it might be something that we can kind of use. So let's leave that for now. And let's just go in and make a new layer. And I'm going to talk a little bit beforehand about how like isometric perspective actually works. So let me fill this and we can kind of see our pixel grid. There we go, right there. So we can see where our pixels are. That's going to be really important. The next really important thing is the brush you're going to use. So we have to use the pencil when we're doing this. And the pencil lives in your brush up here. If you click on the brush icon and you hold it down, you'll see the second one down is the pencil tool. The reason we use this is, I'll show you, if I'm in a brush now, even if it's a hard edge brush, so like this brush, for instance, you'll see that I'll get a blurry line. I won't get a clean line because Photoshop is always trying to kind of like smooth things down, get rid of the pixelation, trying to make things really clean. So it gives me a little bit of a margin of kind of different pixels. And I don't want that. I want a really clean cut, very jagged line. So we can't really use that as is. So I have to use the pencil brush, the pencil tool. And that you can see immediately is giving me these little kind of sizes. So if I go down to 1 pixel, it's literally drawing with pixels. There's no soft edge on any of this stuff. So that's exactly what I want. So pencil tool for the win when you're doing pixel art. Always, always, always. That is literally the only tool you will ever use. You will potentially use an eraser as well. And on the eraser, you're going to need to do the same thing, but there's no pencil brush eraser tool. You just have to go to the eraser and then go up to where it says mode up here and go down and just select pencil. And then we've got the same thing happening where it's going to allow us to erase 1 pixel at a time.
Right.
So that's our kind of brush all set up, good to go.
I'm just going to go
that's working.
Fix something. I'll be right back. I'll be less than a minute. Yep. You keep going with this part, but I'll be right back.
Yep. So we've got something that's going to allow us to kind of create our pixel art in a really kind of nice way. And you could do this with a mouse as well if you're keen to like click once, every now and then. You could totally do this with a brush as well. You don't necessarily need a Wacom. So I'm using a Wacom kind of pen and stylus. You can't quite see it on my screen here, but I'm using a big Cintiq 24. And that just allows me to kind of draw a little bit more comfortably when I'm doing this. But pixel grid. So we've got our baseline kind of pixel grid happening there, right? The temptation would be and would make sense to go on a 1-to-1, so 45-degree angles, right? So 1 pixel down, 1 pixel across, 1 pixel down, 1 pixel across, and you get this really kind of even line happening. But if we're kind of doing isometric perspective, the 45-degree angle is too steep. It's too, like, for instance, like let's say we're doing the top of a building, and it's like not a square building, so we'll do something like this. You'll see that it's basically just giving me straight up top down, right? Like I'm not really getting this sense of perspective with it. So I can't use 45 degrees when I'm doing this. It has to be different. And the standard for isometric perspective is a 2-to-1 ratio. So here we've got 1-to-1, right? Because for every pixel we go up, we go across 1. So it's 1, 1, 1, 1. What we want is a 2-to-1 pixel. So what we want to do here is go 2 across, 1 down, 2 across, 1 down, 2 across, 1 down. That's going to give us this angle that we're looking for when we're doing pixel art. And so the theory behind this is if you go from your straight line, you're going to have a vertical, and you're going to have an angle going from here where we're going to go 2, up 1, 2, up 1, 2, up 1, 2, up 1, and so on and so forth. And that angle is 30 degrees.
Right.
Right? So here we're at 30 degrees. Here we're at 60 degrees, which obviously together gives us 90 degrees. Right? And so that's the angle that we need to kind of work to when we're kind of working with isometric perspective, because it's going to give us the correct isometric perspective. And if you see here, what I've done on my actual drawing is you can see that grid and how that works here, right? We've got these blocks that are kind of a little bit in perspective. We're not completely above them. And we've got 60, 30, 120, and a kind of a 90-degree angle happening here. That's your standard isometric perspective grid.
Cool.
But like I said, how that translates to, let's see, let's test my theory here. Let's see if I'm correct in doing this. I'm going to make a straight line. I'm going to rotate it minus 30 degrees and hit return. And it's kind of done 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. I haven't set my transform tool to the right setting, so it's blurred out. I'll do that in a sec. But yeah, there we go. So the first thing to do before we kind of get started on this is to make sure that we have an isometric grid all set up, and we're going to use that as a basis for our work. So let's turn our layer back on, and we're going to drop the opacity of this right down and go back to this. I'm going to lock this as well because I have a habit of drawing on a layer for like hours and realize I'm on the wrong layer. So this just like helps me not do that because I'm an idiot and I need the help. So we go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and so on. And again, we could do this way and it might take a little while, or let's test out my theory, and I'm going to switch back on to this so I can kind of see my pixel line and make a nice long line here. And I'm going to go in and hit transform. So Command T. And in my interpolation up here, I don't know if you guys can see that up there. Hang on, let me zoom in on this. I don't know if that's working for you guys or not. They kind of zoom in on the screen.
Oh no, the zoom doesn't work. No, we won't see the zoom in, okay, unfortunately. Yeah. It only works on like your iOS, like an iOS. It only works on Mac operating system. So yeah, when you're sharing your screen, unfortunately the zoom doesn't actually zoom in, but we can point, it's up there, up the top.
Yeah, up here where it says interpolation. By default, it's on bicubic automatic, right? Don't worry too much about what that says. What you want is nearest neighbor. So if you remember what it did when I first did this, is it kind of screwed up my line and made it all kind of blurry. Doing this with nearest neighbor is going to make it a nice hard edge. So it hasn't done the best job. So probably going to have to do this manually. That's all right. All right, so let's go 1, 2. We'll only have to do this once, right? Because once we've done it, we can duplicate and make that line happen again as we need. So we only really need to do this once, and it's all good. And in fact, we probably don't need to do it the whole time. If you're kind of smart about this, you could just go and duplicate this layer. So we've got layer 2. I'm going to hit Command J, and it's duplicated that. And then I could just move the next section over, and then do that again, move the next section over. So I don't have to spend the next 17 years of my life making this one line.
Yeah.
I can just kind of work to that. And you can see here that it's matching up pretty good to my pixel grid that I kind of created beforehand. So let me now just go ahead and smash all these together. So I've got them all selected. Command E, Control E is going to merge them all together. I'm going to duplicate that again. I'm going to do this a few times. Duplicate that again. Transform that. flip it horizontal, move it over to the other side, making sure that I overlap on the end here properly. Never at any point do I want to have a 3 pixel or anything like that. It's going to be a little bit tricky to work with. So I'm going to make sure that I'm down to 2 on the end, and they're going to overlap quite nicely that way. Then I can go this again, merge these 2 guys again, and I've got the good basis for my kind of construction grid happening now. So I can duplicate this again, and I can start to just get a few little kind of construction lines happening real quick and easily before I start to kind of even do any of the detailing and everything else. So this just means that I've got a good baseline grid to work from, and things that I can connect to as I'm kind of going up into my drawing. Right? I can erase all these things later on, but this just speeds up my work immensely.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cap off the roof. I'm going to do that one last time, Command J, and I'm going to transform this one and flip it vertically. And there we go. We've got that section of our roof all good to go. Just need to realign it so that it kind of goes nicely. Oops. Move that down. Yeah, there we go. We're looking at this, right? We're looking at getting this section here shouldn't be like this, because then you get a clump. It should just be 2 again.
Right. So even if it's like deviates a little bit from your sketch, which it hasn't here, I'm not saying it has, but like even if it deviates a bit from the sketch, you want to get that kind of mathematically right.
Yeah, it's about the visuals of your sketch and how that's going to kind of work. And you'll see what I mean later on. They can start to be like clumps of pixels and so on.
Yeah.
So that's always going to be a little bit kind of tricky. But yeah, so far we're kind of getting all that nice and kind of ready. We're going to merge all these guys together, and we're going to start kind of using these to work in our basic kind of sketch, right? So like with any kind of sketch that you're doing or any kind of drawing that you're doing, you want to be able to kind of have a basis, and then you're going to build on top of that. We're going to start detailing all of this as we go, right?
Cool.
So let me close this guy, and I can probably close this guy too. Make sure I'm going to save it as well. Important. Go. And so that we are working in a slightly less kind of like psychedelic way, because pixel art requires you to zoom in and out a lot, and that starts to get a little bit kind of hectic on the brain. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a new window of this and keep it on the side zoomed out and work on the big one next to it. And that will always allow me to just kind of look at the next one over and see what it looks like at size and whether or not it's working properly. So we're going to go to Window, Arrange, and then we're going to make new window for Untitled 01. We should probably actually name and save this before we do any of this. That's always a helpful thing to do. So we're not duplicating Untitled 01 just as a way off. Let's call this Sushi Shop Isometric. There we go.
Final, this one.
Final, really good to go for real this time. Scratch the other one. And I called it Shishi Shop, but that doesn't matter. So window, arrange, new window from my file. And I'm going to go back to window, arrange, and I'm going to go 2 up vertical. So I've got my 2 windows here. And what you'll notice is that this one is the one I'm working on. And if I go in and draw, like, let's go ahead and do this now, draw a big kind of red line through the middle of it, the next one over will update. The small one will update here. So I can work on either one of these that I want, really. There's no kind of limitations here in terms of like, you need to work on one versus the other. But the point is that I want something that's going to be a little bit smaller over here, already zoomed out. So I don't have to spend the whole stream kind of giving you guys all headaches, zooming in and out of this particular file. So I can actually work at as already zoomed in and just look over here. It's just a nice little kind of desktop setup to do. You can do this in Illustrator as well, I've just discovered.
Is
so
this
it's just
something,
a nice kind of like reference.
Is it something that you'll exclusively do in pixel art, or is it something that you do in your other work as well?
Sometimes do in my other work. It's good for, like, for instance, if I wasn't able to bring this sketch in, like, it's cool to just have that on the side.
Yeah.
But that you don't need to do the process that I just did to do that, because we're not making a new window from that file. That's literally just a different file open in the browser next to it. So you could have both of those open and go to window, arrange, and just have them, like, two up, two down, whatever you're comfortable with. But for this, in order to work on that file and see it zoomed in and zoomed out at the same time, you need to make a new window from that specific file.
Cool.
All right, so let's go in and start potentially kind of clipping and erasing some of these things over here that we don't need. So we don't really need that. We could probably get rid of this guy and keep him just as a 1. Same thing over here. Let's do this real quick. Now, this brings me to the next thing, which is my selection tools. So you'll notice that as I've deleted that, so if I undo that, I've made a selection with my lasso tool here, and I've hit delete, and that little pixel there has gone gray. That is because basically all the tools that you're going to use, so selection tools, brush tools, transform tools, they all need to be set to pixel art mode. They all need to get rid of this default thing that Photoshop's trying to do, which is making the thing trying to be smoother and trying to get rid of the pixels. So you want to bring all that back. And so up here where it says anti-aliasing, for all you gamers out there, you'll know exactly what anti-aliasing is.
We do.
Aliasing is basically this, right? Everything is pixels, your screen is pixels, so video games can try and sort of like smoothen that out and get rid of this kind of like hard edge effects that looks horrible 99% of the time, except when you're doing pixel art is completely desirable. So we want to make sure we untick that. And when I go back and do the same selection here, if I stop over half a pixel and delete, you'll see that that's now cleanly deleted it.
Nice.
So I'm going to need to do that to every single one of my selection tools. So for instance, if I go to my elliptical tool, you'll notice that it's also on anti-aliasing. So I'm going to have to untick that. And it's like all this stuff is stuff that you'll have to undo again when you go back to normal working mode. So it can be a little bit of a kind of a remindery thing. I think, again, this is one of the main things that I would love to see Adobe implement, if Adobe's listening, is not only being able to set up your workspaces, which you can do, you can customize your workspace, but also being able to customize all your tool settings to just flip on the fly like that.
Yeah, so you would like to be able to have like just a pixel art kind of setup, and then it would remember that you had turned aliasing off, anti-aliasing
exactly
off.
Yeah. So I can just like, I can just go in and I don't have to re-equip all the things and retick all the boxes and everything. You just like turn it on, turn it off, it's done.
I'll take it straight to the top office right now. No worries.
See that you do. Cool. So we're kind of just building our blocks here. Making sure that everything's kind of lining up. For these ones, obviously, we can just go straight down, holding down Shift. And because we've got vertical lines, that's just going to make it super easy to do. And then we can go again from here. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then Shift straight down. And then erase, bang. So it's pretty quick to kind of get all these. The basis of our drawing is happening pretty quickly as we're doing this. And that's pretty handy. It's one of the nice things with pixel art is you can actually get pretty far pretty quickly. Now, the next thing here is you can see is my pixels in these areas are kind of like connecting. So that's something that I can think about changing potentially. And that happens because I haven't left enough room on the going up side to leave a good amount of room on that ledge. So I'm going to have to go back into this and just extend that ledge to like here.
Right.
It's the same thing, for instance, like if you have, if we've got a pipe, for instance, running along that wall, you probably don't want this happening, right? Like you want to make sure that that pipe is thick enough that there's going to be enough like flesh in the middle of the pipe. If I don't know if that's the right word, but
probably not.
That there's going to be enough space there to like communicate that there's a pipe, because your pixels are going to work against you if that's the case, right? So what I did, whoops. Yeah, man, my computer is really going a little bit slow, isn't it? Strange.
Good thing we're doing pixel art.
So again, potentially. There we go. That's better. So that ledge is probably a little bit wider. It's probably working a little bit better for me than just having the one gap and having those pixels connect is probably not the best thing. So that's a little bit more visually working as a ledge. And I can see here in my smaller one that I'm reading that ledge a little bit better. That's kind of what I'm after, right? So let's kind of continue going down here. And again, I don't necessarily have to spend this much time doing all of this. If I'm kind of smart about this, I could just go in here and on my move tool, so V, this little kind of crosshairs up there, holding down Option, I can just grab a new segment of that and drag it down there. So I don't have to actually redraw the whole thing because every line is going to be the same angle. So it's just, again, just speeds up the workflow quite a bit and allows me to get a little bit further, a little bit faster whilst I'm doing this.
Yeah, so you're kind of building the assets, but then you can use those assets anywhere else because the angle's always going to be the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's make it like there's a little window here, right, on this one. There's a little kind of window there, so we can go ahead and do that one pretty quickly as well. So we're just going to go ahead and select this. There we go. And again, same thing. Move to the move tool option, drag it up, holding down shift so that it lines up perfectly vertically. And then I can just go in and go, there we go. And I've made my little window block there.
Your first window.
Okay. Obviously, I've got a lot of detail in here that's not rectangular. So anything that's not straight lines, we're going to have to start to have a think about a little bit more intensely and kind of see how that works. But anything that is geometric and straight lines, fantastic. It's pixel art's favorite thing to do. So yeah, there's always a little bit of give and take, which is one of the things that I really like about pixel art is that idea that it is a little bit like, it's not your usual working process. It's going to be a little bit different. You're going to have to adapt to something a little bit kind of more peculiar, if I can say. Yeah, so there we go. Here we go. Do this one. Again, same thing. If I'm being smart about this, rather than drawing it, I can just grab over here, grab a section of that, and just duplicate it over to here. Like so. And then just erase these guys. And I've got the back street. The footpath that I'm doing here is important just because it grounds my scene a little bit. And it just means that it looks like a little bit of a block. So it's just one of those little pixel art tricks that's nice to do. It just means everything just feels a little bit more like real and like it's not floating in midair, which is kind of important.
Helps make it look three-dimensional with how it's sort of two lines here, and then just a single line there. So you get that false perspective or something, like, and the way that the balcony kind of wraps around that you did before. Maybe not a balcony, but the second tier in the layer kind of just goes around, but it's thicker on here.
Gives it a sense of volume.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
And again, I'm going to have to make this a little bit bigger, right? So I've got on the other side here, I'm getting to the edge of my page, so I don't want that. So I'm literally just going to add in some pixels. And the quickest way to do that is with your crop tool, and just make your selection over there. Just like go and select the whole page to crop it, and then just make it as big as you like. I'll probably do the same thing on the other side. There we go. And that's it. We've just added a whole ton of pixels on either side. And we can go in and kind of make sure that my kind of footpath that I drew lines up, and I can actually finish it off with that kind of thickness over there too. Just a little bit of like breathing room on the page. You never really want your illustration to go straight to the edge of a page and be touching it. It's generally kind of poor composition.
Yeah.
So just making sure that that's kind of working.
Yeah, because if it's like going off the edge or kissing the edge or something like that, you can't really move it around. It kind of always needs to be against an edge, which makes it not flexible enough.
And the temptation then is also to try and kind of like stay within these lines. So you're going to make the thing shorter than it should be and so on. That's just not great. So we've done the bulk of our kind of construction lines at this stage. Now what we're going to get into is slightly more kind of tricky things to work with. So things like this awning, which so far all I've gotten is vertical and horizontal lines, right? Like obviously they're not horizontal in my drawing, but on the building in the actual picture, it's vertical, horizontal lines put in perspective. But now I'm going to put an angle in perspective. So it's going to start to get potentially a little bit funny with some of these things. So for instance, this little awning here, I could potentially just go a 45-degree angle and see how that looks. And that's not terrible. So then I go back to because this is now a horizontal, so I go back to my 1, 2, 1, 2. That's not too bad.
Looks pretty good.
It fits as well, the fact that it's like, 45-degree angle. It fits this like computer-generated idea of an image. But let's say that this was an awning that had like a bit of a swoop to it, like a little bit of a curve, right? Like one of these things. Like that's going to start to maybe get a little bit trickier for me to work with that and maintain something that's going to be a good pixel art line. And what I mean by good pixel art line is basically not this. That's terrible. Right? This thing where it's like 2 down, 2 across, 2 down, connecting 1, 4 across, 2. It's like there's no system here.
Right.
If at all possible, you want to avoid doing this thing. Like if you're doing a circle, for instance, like this is not good pixel art, right? It's too uneven. It's too all over the place. It doesn't work. A circle, if you look at kind of how that will work, if I just go and make one here, you'll notice what it's done here is it's gone straight, 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 and every time it's 5 pixels. So we got 5 pixels straight, 5 pixels down, or 6 pixels down in this instance, 5 straight, 6. And from like up close, it looks horrible. But if you look at my little thing over here, it starts to look like a circle. Right? So we want to avoid having bad pixel art lines happening. Let me kind of maybe do a bigger one just to kind of see how that works. So again, we've got an even kind of line happening. You're never going to get it to be exactly perfect all the time. There's always going to be a little bit of give and take. But insofar as you can, try and make it so that it's going to work in a way that's going to make sense. So let's say I wanted a little bit of a curve to this. We might do something like 1 down and then move to 2 across for the finish. And if you look at my kind of small version here, it just looks like we got a little bit of an uptick, like it kind of flicks up at the end. It doesn't take much to like change the perception of how the pixel art's looking. So that's not too bad. I don't mind that little kind of nice slope. We got a 45 going into double. That's working for me. The problem now is that I do have something that's potentially going to be a bit of a problem because I've ended with 2 and I'm going to start with 2 going the other way. that might be a little bit tricky just on that spot there. But again, zooming out, looking at it from a zoomed out distance, looks fine. So it is fine.
Looks fine, so it is fine. I like it.
Yep. It's all about the perception when you're working with pixel art like this. It's just like, if it looks even, then it is even. Even if it actually isn't,
yeah,
it just needs to look like it is. So let's duplicate that over to the other side. And again, let's be smart about this. And I'm just going to take this whole section and I am going to duplicate this over here and then flip that horizontally, bang, and then move him right there. Quick and easy. And then nice. I can do the same thing.
I like this comment. I like this comment in chat. That isn't a circle, it's a stop sign. It did look a lot.
It was probably a bit of a stop sign. Yeah. And then we've got a little bit of an issue happening with the lining up of our awning, and we're getting this kind of 3 thing. So this is the next thing that I need to kind of talk about with this is you need to decide, on top of kind of trying to make sure that your line work is even and wherever possible and kind of working in that way, you also need to make sure that your line work is going to be consistent throughout. And if you look at this, we're getting a little bit of a, we're getting a bit of a clump of black happening just in that spot right here, because of the fact that we are not getting diagonal pixels, we're getting this kind of like snake pixel. So essentially, this is what I'm talking about. If you're doing this, right, you want to make sure that at every stage, your little areas here are just diagonally touching. Or if you're going to go and fill in those corners and actually have a line that has a tile that connects the 2 tiles, then you need to make sure you do that to everything. You can't do some that don't connect and some that do. It creates kind of like bad clumpage and just, it makes a horrible kind of pixel art line. So for this one, I'm going to need to figure something out, and I'm probably just going to do something like this, which is weird because the top one is 2 and the bottom one is 1. But again, if I zoom out and I look at it and it looks right, it is right. And that's all that matters.
Nice.
So we've got a little awning. Everything's looking pretty cool. I can work on starting to get some of my kind of details in here and working on that. I probably need to go all the way to the bottom on that corner. You'll also notice that my corner here is not really lining up to the actual corner of the building. And I'm trying to decide whether that's a problem or not. I can probably just go to here and do that. But then I've got 3 pixels, creates a bit of a clump. It's potentially a problem, maybe not, we'll see. All right, so now let's move to something that's going to be quite cool with pixel art, which is this idea of kind of like asset placement. I'm going to do this vending machine that's sitting here. And because I'm not using perspective, I can start to move things around and maybe flip things around, say, right? So let me finish this guy off over here, erase, whoops, not with the 1 tool, with the eraser tool, much better for erasing. Let's say that this is my building and I'm not too sure where I want to put my aircon, my vending machine here.
Right.
So let's build our vending machine on a new layer. So I'm going to go in and go same thing here. I could start duplicating my shapes again and kind of getting those lines happening. Probably won't really bother because it's a pretty small asset, so it doesn't require a ton of work. So it's probably fine for me to just do it.
Yeah, like you don't need to duplicate everything either. Like if you're doing something pretty small, it's probably actually faster and just easier just to redo the pixels.
Exactly, yeah. I'm going to have to cut this here, just at the 1 pixel mark, I think. There we go. And then move over to here. So we go two. Again, you can see that I'm making concessions on the rules that I created of like here, I've got a thing lining up. That's just the nature of pixel art. That's just how it works. You're not always going to get the line you wanted with the rules and the pixel density that you decided to work with. And that's just deal with it. And try and make the thing work as best you can with the rules that you created for it. So yeah, and again, you can see here that I'm like, oh man, this isn't working. Why is it not working? I'm going to have to do something like this, and then it's going to potentially kind of break my system a little bit. But that's just what I'm going to have to do in order to do this. So there's always a little bit of kind of like, how do I figure this out? How do I make this work whilst trying to retain this sense of kind of perspective throughout? So there we go. Do my little screen. And I'm starting to think that maybe I have chosen a pixel density that's a little bit too low. Because if I'm going to start putting bottles in here, it might start to get a little bit tricky to get some of the finer detail in my actual pixel art image. So again, this kind of stuff comes with experience, which clearly I'm lacking a little bit of because I've made that mistake. But yeah, when you're doing something like this, it's good to kind of try and figure out like what's actually going to work, what's not going to work, how can I get exactly what I'm trying to do without kind of sacrificing too much. But let's say that I'm happy with this vending machine. It's not too bad. It's cool. The cool thing about pixel art and the fact that we're using isometric perspective is I can actually take this, and wherever I put it, if I put it on the roof, it all fits because there's no perspective here. It's one of the things with isometric perspective is because you've got a big city and you're zooming in on it, if you put any perspective, by the time you get to the other end of the city, everything's really small because those lines are merging together. Right. So all of my diagonals here are parallel. They're not vanishing to anything. They're never going to meet. So I can put this anywhere I want. I can even flip this and put it on the other side if I want, put it over here.
That's
and
pretty
it
cool.
Still works.
Yeah, I like that.
Right? It just like wherever I can drop this, I've literally just got a vending machine that I can just pop anywhere I want. And that's going to hold true for basically anything that I'm going to do on this image is going to work, like the trash can, the aircon vents, all my neon signs, everything that is on a surface can be flipped and put somewhere else if I need it to be. As long as I've got it obviously on a separate layer, I can just pop that wherever I want. And it becomes literally kind of like a game of SimCity now, where I'm just like putting assets and building stuff and kind of adding it in there, which is super fun to do. And something that's kind of like, hey, what if I did this instead of that and like added this over here and moved it? And you can without having to redraw anything, which is super cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of like mobile phone games, actually. I don't know why that popped into my head. You know, drag and drop and you build your little city or something, or you drag units across and it's kind of go click and they always kind of pop in place. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, it's a bit like that, isn't it? It's literally like, because I'm working on a pixel grid, it's only so many places it can go. So it just kind of magnetizes to where you're putting it, which is super fun. Okay, so let's move probably to the next phase of things. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. We've got about 10 minutes left. I'm going to start adding in some main blocks of color here. We could spend a lot of time on the line work and trying to figure out how that works and kind of where it's going. But having the main volumes of where we're working and what we're kind of doing is also going to be really important for me. So I'm going to make a new group and I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call this one colors. And here I'm going to jump into Adobe Firefly and show you guys just like something that's Flynn's been really kind of gotten me a better access to it. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because there's a lot to talk about and it's a hot topic at the moment, AI generated art. But for me, what's kind of cool here is, like, as you can see, I've kind of done these prompts of isometric Japanese shop street scene. And I've put it on vibrant color and low lighting. and just gives me this kind of sense of like, cool, maybe there's some detail in here that I could use to like get some inspiration. Like, hey, I like the street lamp, or I like this sign, or this shelf of like stuff, or somebody with an umbrella standing outside. Just nice little inspiration ideas. But also what's cool is I can use this to get some kind of color palette going. So I'm going to hack this a little bit, and I'm literally just going to take a screenshot of this and switch back into Photoshop and just drop that screenshot straight into here. And we're going to use this to create a color palette that's going to work for us. So I'm going to go in and select a few colors. We got the blue. We're going to grab this one. And we've got a kind of a nice nighttime vibe happening. That works quite well. I quite like. Got some lighter tones,
glow
and some
coming
darker
from
tones
inside the shop
into
the outside.
The glow from inside the shop is going to be really cool. We're going to use that for sure. There we go. So that's probably not a terrible start for us to kind of start thinking about colors. We don't want too many at this stage because we're working for something a little bit kind of cleaner, a little bit nicer, but I'm going to start with this main color. This like light blue is probably going to be my main color source.
And I will let you know, because I think you thought that we have more time than we do. We've only got about 4 minutes left, just letting you know.
Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and start speeding this up a little bit and working and filling these in. So this is going to be my main kind of block. And I can start to, like get some main areas in here, just all blocked out with my main color. And because I've gotten these outlines and I'm working with pixel art, I don't need to be crazy careful of how this is being filled, because it's all just kind of lining up nicely because I'm using a square brush in a square world. Everything lines up nice and everything's coming up Millhouse.
Millhouse.
So this is just going to allow us very quickly to see the main volumes that we are going to work with. So I've got that. I'm going to want a lighter tone potentially up here. So we're going to do this. And I'm going to lock my pixels on this one here. So on my layer, I'm just going to work straight to that. And I'm going to go to this one, this little kind of checkerboard, and it's going to lock the transparency. That means that if I paint over here, I'm not painting anywhere. So I can be even less careful here when I'm doing the highlights.
Yeah.
Which is great. I love being less careful. There we go. And then finally this one, which is probably a little bit too dark. Probably want a slighter lighter tone. So I may even just take this one and just go in and warm this up a little bit, just so we got a lighter tone. That's better. A little bit more difference in between the tones here is going to work a little bit better. So we're starting to kind of get already a pretty good indication of volumes and how they're going to work with our drawing here. I'm also potentially at this stage going to make my background not white and just drop it to a gray. It's a little kind of digital painter's trick, just so that you've got something on the page, but also allows you to actually see your colors probably a little bit better and work with them a little bit more cleanly.
Yeah, something about having like white on the page feels less done.
Yeah. And now we can start to, I'll do this on separate layers, but we can do this tomorrow when we do the second part of this. But you can start to kind of see how the light's going to work, where it's going to come from, all these kind of different things that are going to happen on my drawing can start to already happen as we're doing this here. And again, I'm probably going to need a darker color red here because that's wrapping around the balcony.
While we're finishing this off, so yes, this is part one of two-part series for this one, so we'll be back tomorrow. So we're going to spend some more time on it. We're not leaving it there. We'll be back with Jeremy tomorrow with that one. Just letting you know before we run out of time. We've probably got a minute left, Jeremy. Oh, also, we have another live stream today. So in half an hour after this stream, we are doing some experimentations in Adobe Firefly with Ramesh Harikrishna-Samy. So stick around or come back. We'll be back in half an hour with that. So double stream today.
Nice. That should be interesting. Yeah, so that's basically it, right? We've kind of done some line work. We've set up our isometric grid. We've set up our files and everything else to be ready for making pixel art. We've got the basic premise of our drawing that we kind of did with a whole lot of detail in it, but we're just kind of slowly building blocks onto it and adding more and more detail, and I'll start adding more detail as I go. Probably won't be able to fit everything that I've put into this image here because there's quite a lot of stuff, but we'll get the main things that give it that kind of like personality and character that I'm trying to go for on this image.
Cool. We are going to have to leave it there, or we're going to get cut off, my friend. Yep. So we'll be back tomorrow. Stick around. We'll see you in half an hour again with more Adobe Live, and we'll be back with Jeremy tomorrow for more pixel art. Thanks so much, Jeremy.
See you guys.
See ya.